Like once you're the age where you can work, I think that's the point where you should be able to like choose your identity.
The system doesn't allow a way for you to get out of that, to be like, wait a minute, I never agreed to that. I wasn't an adult. I was an infant.
I think no matter what system you use, people will find ways to exploit it. People will find ways to skirt around it or cheat it or forge it or whatever.
The entire system, the legal system, the financial system, like the employment system in the US, completely revolves around that number, which is so fragile and very prone to compromise.
Well, all right. How about welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I am Casey Rochford. Pretty sure that's my name. It might not be later. It might be Mr. Rochford. But that just depends on how many of these I have. And we'd love it if you'd like and share and subscribe. And this episode is brought to you by our paid sponsor, Kitchen Sink Microscopy, your source for all kitchen sinks, microscopes, and philosophy.
Well, I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and Casey and I write our own music, and well, there could be a song you've never heard at the end of this episode. Timestamp down there if you want to just skip all of us talking and go straight to the tunes. You can go to our website, which we really don't maintain anymore, ksfpodcast.com.
Go and laugh at us.
Yeah, or go to we're a two-person team who like work full-time and do this in our spare time. So hey, swivel on it.
Yeah. Poor Eric's got like 7 girlfriends to like pay attention to. I mean,
yeah. I like to juggle. Yeah, so oh geez. Well, so Casey, what do you think we should talk about today?
I think we should talk about identification. May I see your papers, please?
Information. We want information.
You are number 6.
I'm not a number. I'm a free man.
I mean,
man,
that's an interesting thing too, is like numbering and stuff, like having numbers associated to your person,
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things to talk about when it comes to identification. I mean, even the whole concept of self could come into it. Like, who says you have to be one person? Some people are definitely not one person.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that wrong? Like, I mean,
that's a very interesting question. And also, why do people have to be numbered? Why is this some kind of quantified sort of thing? Like, why do we have to be unique, or be identifiable or separable from everybody else? Distinguishable.
This will be such a good one.
Yeah. I can already tell, like, it's gearing up to be a good one.
I swear we don't even prepare for this stuff.
Like, no, we don't. We totally don't. Like, I mean, we just picked this out of our hat full of ideas.
I don't even know where to start. Well, I guess like it was a couple episodes ago that kind of spurred this idea, and I had posed the question, like, what makes a passport more trustworthy than a driver's license?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, yeah, like they're both just like printed pictures of you.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a really good point.
Both
And
can be forged. I
that,
mean,
yes, very easily, in fact. And there is a cottage industry. I don't know about passports, but I can tell you there definitely is an underground system of like ID card or driver's license forging,
mhm,
that they make very believable forgeries.
yeah.
And is it legit because it comes from some self-proclaimed governmental organization? Like, are they, do they legitimize your existence, or does like you simply existing legitimize that?
I would say the latter. I mean,
Uh,
because I mean, ultimately, things are only wrong if you get caught. You know, if you
mm,
show someone a forged passport and they let you through, well, it was just legitimate then, wasn't it?
well, there was actually a guy who did that, like pretending to be somebody from a country that didn't exist, and he had a passport, and like
Borat.
there was a whole crazy story behind that. And yeah, like, and how is your existence on planet Earth as a citizen of Earth, how is your ability to travel legitimized by some governmental entity? It maybe, some authoritarian regime or something, saying, well, yeah, you're like an actual person and here's your papers. How, like, what? Like, you're, I mean, you're a corporeal entity. Like, you're standing here. Obviously, you're a human being.
Yeah.
You are obviously legitimate. Like, okay, if we start getting into things like deep fakes, and you see a video of somebody, I could see people being like, well, I don't know. You better give me a little more proof than that. But it's like, it's a little hard currently to fake a human being. Um, and oh man, this is going to go into a whole totally different tangent about borders and free travel, and
Mhm.
like the value of human life, and things like that.
Well, what
Um,
about like Aboriginal people on some remote island? They aren't associated with any numbers.
no,
You
no.
know, like,
And back in the day, a long time ago, before, when we were hunter gatherer societies and people were just developing agriculture and stuff, you know what you did to move or travel to another place? You hopped on a horse, you walked, you built a boat, and you traveled across the water to another place, and you simply fucking went there. That was it. Like, you didn't. You,
they'd have like a manifest where you'd sign your name or whatever, but that was like the extent of it. You
well,
know, it's
yeah,
like,
because they just kind of want to know like what's going on. Essentially, like,
yeah,
people want the big picture, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
matter if you, where you came from or something like that. Like, okay, sure, you're here, you're doing stuff, you're integrating into the society, and whatever. Who cares? Nobody. It really doesn't matter. Like,
that's, I mean, that's how names change over time. I mean, like America and their like loosey goosey manifests of like, hey, just tell us what your name is and call it good. That's how that stuff happened. You know, like, that's how that always happened, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and sometimes people came from places where there wasn't a direct, easily translated English version, and they just said, "Oh, well, okay, I guess here's a good name for you if you want it." And
Yeah.
people picked up different names, and it
They're
was
like,
okay. Like, nobody cared.
yeah.
People totally didn't care about that.
Welsh person comes over, they're like, what's your name? And they say it, and they're like, I'm just gonna call you
Tim.
Mr. Drake.
Yeah.
There you
Oh
go.
yeah, yeah. That one long, crazy, unpronounceable town in Wales. Oh my God. It's like all consonants. Like, oh
Like 48 of them or
yeah.
something.
Crazy. Yeah, but I
Well,
don't know. I don't.
and there's the whole idea of like last names and stuff, and how that kind of ties to you and like carries all this like ancestral bullshit with it that really has nothing to do with you.
Oh well. Oh no, you're right. Like, imagine if your last name was Hitler.
Right.
People would be like, "Oh, you're associated with Hitler," but it's like, well, no, you probably couldn't be. I mean, I haven't met somebody with that last name, but it would carry with it that kind
No,
of,
that last name is dead. Like,
yeah. But even if it wasn't, we shouldn't look at somebody with the last name of Hitler as being associated with Adolf Hitler. Like,
right.
well, it's like sins of the father kind of thing. Like,
Mhm.
that was one guy who was a complete madman. Um, just because you share a linguistic link,
Who didn't have
a
kids
name,
himself anyway,
yeah. But I mean, just because you share some kind of naming commonality with that person doesn't mean you're like that person. Like,
Now
yeah.
I do get having something to use for accountability and acquiring certain benefits and stuff like that. So it's like I do see the purpose of stuff like social security numbers, driver's licenses, license on a car, like something to say this is X thing or Y person. It makes sense, right? But
No,
like,
you're right. You're right. Like, and in terms of I'm gonna inject my anarchist philosophy in here, but in terms of contracts, sure, you want to be able to verify or either prove that you were the person who signed a contract or entered into an agreement, or be able to enforce said contract or agreement uh, against another person, and be able to differentiate one person from another person. And honestly, I think ID cards and driver's licenses and social security cards, that stuff sucks. It is a shitty way to verify that because it's so easy to replicate. So easy. Like, especially the social security ID in the card. Like, it's super simple. Um, and I think it's really important that we have a way of proving somehow for both sides of a contract that, like, oh yes, these two individuals or two or more individuals or organizations did indeed agree to this thing. um and I'm gonna throw this out there. Currently, with the technology we have, the best way to do that is NFTs, um crypto, blockchain kind of stuff. um that is
I
a
will
far
I
better
will
way.
say that your point about social security numbers being assigned at birth is ridiculous because you're not even paying into it until you work. So
Well,
like once you're the age where you can work, I think that's the point where you should be able to like choose your identity. Like you have your own personality at that point. You have cognitive thoughts and an identity that you've developed, right? Like we should normalize people being able to select not only their gender, based on however they identify, but how they identify. They
yeah,
should be able to pick their name at that age. They should be able to decide if they want to opt into Social Security, all
sure.
that stuff,
Oh
like,
no, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, you should be able to even select your name.
yeah.
Because, well, and here's the problem. The biggest problem I have with Social Security as it stands in the US is, well, when you're born, when you're an infant, you are not legally able to enter into a contract. But yet your parents sign you up, contractually oblige you to this system like, I mean, obviously you are completely new and green. You don't know anything. And well, from that day, from the day of birth, essentially, you're entered into a contract which you can't legally agree to. And then the system doesn't allow a way for you to get out of that, to be like, wait a minute, I never agreed to that. I wasn't an adult. I was an infant, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think, yeah, there should be like a coming of age. If you become an adult,
I
there's
think that's just for taxes.
Well,
So the
yeah.
parents can write you off and prove that you're a person.
Well,
But I
okay.
mean,
Well,
now we could just have their iris be an NFT or something, you know?
yeah, exactly. So prove to me somebody is a person. Like that. Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of interesting that we use these really old school systems, like a piece of cardboard with a number printed on it, and oh, that's the de facto proof that you're a real human being and you really exist and you're unique. Well, maybe what about DNA
Hmm.
as part of that system? Now, okay, I'm all about privacy, so I think there should be a layer between things. Like, we shouldn't, just like fingerprints. No system should have access to your fingerprint, your DNA, your medical files, or anything like that, like personal information. But there should be a way to incorporate those things into like a piece of code, essentially, that uniquely identifies you.
How would that work without having some record of it, though? Or
Well,
preventing a record from being kept?
you you could go with the same system that blockchain and cryptocurrency is based on: public keys, private keys. So there can, algorithmically, you can build a number or a string of information that represents something where you can go forward but not backward. So you can prove that you exist and that you're you who you say you are, without anybody being able to look at that information and being able to uniquely identify you. Um,
Hmm.
it's the whole cool thing about prime numbers and stuff like that. And NFTs actually provide such a system as well. It it really is the future. But I think, because here's the problem. Like, okay, you're assigned a social security. Oh, sorry. I want to say I've thought about this at length, like how to solve this problem. Because the problem is this: you're assigned a social security number at birth. Like, what is it? 9 digits or something like that. Just numbers.
Mhm.
It's not even alphanumeric.
In America.
Yeah. Here in the US, that's how it is. I'm sure similar things exist in other places. But
Yeah, I think Germany is alphanumeric.
well,
At least one alphabet character. But
mhm.
yeah.
Well, they're exponentially changing the options at that point.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you're assigned this number randomly by a system, and like pushed by your parents when they sign up for Social Security, and that number sticks with you for your entire life. It's like your fingerprints. Um, so if it's ever compromised, well, no, you can't change it. That is your number. You can't just be like, oh, hey, like a credit card, right? You lose your credit card or it's stolen. You could be like, hey, they stole my credit card, and they just like cancel that number and give you a new number. Well, that doesn't work with Social Security. And the entire system, the legal system, the financial system, like the employment system in the US, completely revolves around that number, which is so fragile, and very prone to compromise. And and it happens all the time. Like, identity theft is totally a thing. And if we had a sponsor, it would be some kind of VPN or identity theft protection system, but we don't have a sponsor, sadly. But it's really a problem. Like, what if somebody figures out your social security number and a couple other details about you, and they just pretend to be you and open up a bunch of bank accounts and get a bunch of credit cards based on your name? What can you do? You can't just be like, oh, well, that was compromised, I need a new one. They're going to be like, oh, no, you can't have a new one. That it is like stuck with you. It's like tattooed on your head for your whole entire life.
I think no matter what system you use, people will find ways to exploit it. People will find ways to skirt around it or cheat it or forge it or whatever. I mean, like, with credit cards, like, I remember a time when if you lost your credit card, you would get one with the exact same number. If it was a debit card, the last few digits were like the same as your account number on your bank account. Like, and somehow just having a new physical card was just fine and dandy, and now it's not.
So okay, the way it works now, like, you do get, if your card is lost or stolen, you get a completely new card with a new number. Your account at the bank stays the same. So because the thing is, if you have the card, nobody can like go backwards and figure out from your card number what your account number is.
No.
And so that's where, that's where this kind of system makes sense. So okay, let's say you have a social security number. When you apply for a job or open a bank account or do whatever, wherever, I don't know why social security numbers became the thing, but whatever they are. So when you do that, you should not, so that's your private key. The social security number is your private key. So what you do when you apply for those things, I don't know if you've used two-factor authentication. Well,
we gotta talk about that.
Yes, we should. But here's the thing. It is built on something in the back end. So all they need to know is, well, we've sent you this number. Does this and that number coincide? If those are the same, then okay, great, you're good. But nobody can take the 2FA code that you have and figure out your other information, secret information. So you can do that algorithmically. You can take your social security number, and actually, honestly, if it was what it is now, as shitty as it is, with the limited number of just numerical digits it is, you could use that to create a public key that could change anytime you want to share that information with somebody, and it can be verified, but you can't reverse engineer it. So you can't take the public key and figure out the private key, but you could take the public key and verify that, yes, indeed, this is correct. Like, I don't know what the private key is, but this and the public key and the private key jive. So you are legit, essentially. That would be a much better way to do it. And the thing is, like, we've had the ability to do this shit since like the 70s. So
yeah,
there's really no excuse for us to be using antiquated systems where you bring in like a little paper card and you write down these digits. No. And in fact, nobody should even be able to know your true data. You can verify your authenticity as a human being, or say like, oh, I live here, or I have this job, or I make this amount. You could do all that without anybody being able to like figure out your personal details.
Really though, like, the onus should be on anyone who needs that information. And what I mean there is, like, fuck this two-factor shit, because it's like, it's almost so tight to the point where you can't access your own information should you forget something.
Yeah.
But like anybody could really get around it because like I'll be on my cell phone, right? Totally unlocked, and I'll go to get into my bank, and it's like two-factor authentication needs to push a notification to your cell phone. Okay. And then it comes to my cell phone and I just hit yes. And it's like, if somebody had my cell phone and had it unlocked, two-factor authentication was completely useless then.
Well, you're right.
So it's like, if there have been so many times where I've been wondering, like, am I talking to the right people? And I have no way for them to authenticate to me who they are. Like,
ooh, man, that's a really good point. Because scammers.
Yeah, scammers would be obsolete if that was how we did things.
It should be bidirectional.
Yes,
essentially.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
If you need me to prove who I am, I expect the same thing. You got to reciprocate.
Yeah, man, that's a brilliant idea. Like that should be more of a thing.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
Just like if a police officer asks you for identification, you're within your rights to ask for a badge number.
Yeah,
they have to give it to you, as far as I know.
They do. However, how do you verify that? Like,
I mean, in the moment you don't, but like,
well,
at least you can go back and.
But
if you don't get shot.
Yep, that was my point. Is like, if you're not dead. But what if there was an app for that? What if you could just like type that in?
He's reaching for his phone.
Yeah. Well, what if you could verify each other?
Yeah.
That might be a better way to do it. I don't know.
I don't think that's too much to ask.
No, it's not.
Like ditch the two-factor. That would be the two-factor authentication. Like both people prove to each other that they're legit.
Well, and that's where blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs like all kind of coalesce into this beautiful ball of the future. Like, this could be the future. We actually could have
all about anonymous stuff. Somehow proves your authenticity.
Well, it actually does, because there's a public key and a private key. The thing is, you can prove that a transaction happened or that you own this thing without anybody knowing who you actually are as a person, without being able to reverse engineer all that. And that's the beauty of it. Like, this is the future. Well, it should be the now. I mean, it exists now. We should be using it. Because there's all kind. I mean, everything from ticket sales to voting can be fixed using NFTs. Like, oh man, I should actually do a whole minute microscopy about voting with NFTs, because people are like, oh, but the dead people voting, and there's all kinds of fraud, and it's like, well, if we just simply embraced NFTs and blockchain encryption, none of that would be a thing anymore. You would know 100% that a unique person cast a unique vote, and there's no way for that. Oh yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that would be a way better identification system. This idea that we're going to carry around a paper or a plastic card, and you look at it in dim light and like, well, I think you're 21, like that. Yeah, that was close enough. Off you go into the club. Well, we could fix that, and we could fix it in a way that doesn't compromise your personal security, like your privacy. Like, it's so easy. It is so fucking easy. Like, there are people, like children in middle school, building these kinds of algorithms, and they work. Yes, it's not perfect, and like you said, it's possible. There are people, well, where there's a will, there's a way. People will always find a way to kind of game the system and stuff like that, but this system is far superior to anything else. It's certainly to those like little cards with the weird barcodes and things they have on them.
Chip.
Like, yeah.
Fucking chip. They're like, it'll make things quicker. Quicker than
No.
swiping a card, right? Like,
Yeah,
insert your card.
yeah.
Insert your card again.
How many times I have to take the card out and I'm rubbing it on my shirt and like rubbing it with my fingers and sticking it in, and it's like, and like it doesn't like it. And by the way, the chip is bullshit anyway, because the very same day it was like made official, it was cracked. So it's like, okay, well, we might as well be using the mag stripe now.
They're like, now there's a way to like access cards remotely. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. The contactless kind of thing too. Like, you just kind of put a little thing up against somebody's butt and you took their information. And there's skimmers now. Like, due to miniaturization, there's these skimmers that you can like slide into a card slot at like a gas station or something.
Giggity.
Yeah. Well, I didn't quite mean it that way, but now that you talk about it, I'm getting all excited. But those exist, so it's like, now everybody's at risk.
Not that kind of ATM, Eric.
But the thing is, like, you don't know where your information lies, and I mean, credit cards, debit cards, and stuff like that. Again, they can't know your actual account number at a bank from the information skimmed off of a credit card or debit card, which is kind of how the public key, private key thing works. Like, the public key is the number on the back of the card, the expiration, that 3-digit, useless fucking 3-digit code at the back, that kind of stuff. Private key is your actual account number, and where banking is concerned, it works outward facing. So there's a bank account that you know the information for. They send you a card, and the card is tied to that account, but that account number isn't in the card anywhere. Like, the system is like, hey, what about this number? And banks are like, yep, that's my account holder, and here it is, and we'll send you this money, or we'll credit this money, or something like that. We'll see. But it isn't like your bank account and routing number is on the card like checks used to be, by the way. Oh my god.
Yep.
Dude, if anybody out there is still writing checks, stop. Stop doing that. Oh my god. You might as well have your social security number like printed on the check.
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're writing the check for.
That's true.
Okay, all this kind of reminds me of those like those little USB dongles for a VPN, where it like has like a code that changes every few seconds or however much time, and you just like enter that to coincide with whatever code is reading right then. Like you take your dongle and you stick it in the USB slot, and what?
Nothing. Carry on. It's okay. More beer.
Yeah. But yeah, like I really think we need to not make things more complicated, just make them more secure by like sharing the burden of authentication, because I've never once found a company that has offered that option.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've like begged companies for it. I've been like, I need you to prove to me who you are. Like, can you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I I would say, like, I've given you all this information already. Why don't you tell me this thing? Like, I'll tell them something they should know and should be able to tell me. And of course, they're not allowed to because they'll get fired or whatever.
Yeah.
But they should be allowed to.
Oh yeah.
They
Well,
should be required to.
and that like that aligns with the whole contract kind of thing, like
Mhm.
verification of both parties involved in an agreement, whatever that agreement is. You should be able to be like, okay, this is a verified entity, whoever it is, be it a company or an organization or an individual, and this over here is the same, and they on this day at this time on this place on planet Earth agreed to this thing. Um, Here we go. And do you agree? Do you agree? Yes, yes. Boom. Okay, it's sealed, signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah.
Like
We got to do a whole episode on contracts because I hate fucking contracts.
Well, contracts are the way to solve a lot of issues that government was built to solve when they don't
Contracts
really.
in theory, but there has never been a contract drafted that wasn't designed to screw one side over.
Well, that's true, and that might be due to the fact that people don't really understand contracts. Like contracts are an agreement. Holy shit, we're going all over the place, and this is a great episode.
They're supposed to be, but they're not. You
Well,
can't change them. You're supposed to be able to, but you cannot.
You can change them.
Nope.
Yes, you can.
If you want the service, you can't change it.
Well,
and you're not going to have any luck finding another company that offers a service that will let you change their contract.
Well,
you have to sign a contract.
The latter
cannot change it.
The latter is the problem, but you absolutely can change a contract and say, "Do you agree to the terms?" Like,
if it's online, you cannot. I've tried.
Oh,
physically impossible.
Well, then just don't sign up. This is a thing,
but you have to. Like,
no, you don't.
If I need a cell phone, I need a cell phone, and I have to sign a contract for it. Like, well, I mean, like, let's not get split hairs here because contract free stuff, but you know what I'm saying. Like, there's stuff where you have to sign contracts, and
no, maybe you're right in that regard. That
there's convenience too. You got
contracts. Well, it's like EULAs and things like that. People don't read those license agreements and stuff. They just say yes and install the software. Well, you should read it. We should be critical of those systems. We used to be critical of those systems. It used to be that a contract was an actual exchange between two parties. Like it would be like when you get a job, you ask for a certain pay, and they're like, "Well, we can offer you this much," and then you counter offer. It's a diplomatic kind of exchange. That's how contracts used to be. So somebody would write up a contract, and they'd say, "Well, here's our terms," and you would be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna cross that out, writing my own stuff. How about that?" And they'd say, I don't know, or maybe yes. And then
I've even tried that before, and they won't let you. They won't sign the contract. If you change anything, they won't sign it. So, like, you're forced out of the deal. Like, if you change anything, which you're allowed to, they'll just automatically fucking say nope.
Well, and that's a fault of things being so established for so long that companies don't understand that is totally within the rules. Like, and it should be. Like, well, it's kind of like playing a game. I mean,
they're salespeople, right? They should be allowed to wiggle and say, okay, well, if you want to take that out, we're going to have to up the price a little bit. Like, play with it.
It's like a game, and not a video game, like a game the kids play and stuff like that. You agree to the rules beforehand, and people are like, "Oh, well, here's the rules and stuff." And well, but wait a minute, if you throw the ball 2 times through that space, I should get 10 times the points. And they're like, well, how about 5 times the points? That's okay. Well, that's good. And you agree to the terms and conditions before you play. That's how contracts work. Well, should work. And so there's room there. Yeah, there is wiggle room there. And it's actually kind of a detrimental to the companies. Like, you're losing customers because you're so hardline. You're just like fucking dictatorial about how things work, that like, oh, there's no room to move.
Well, that's the problem. They don't lose customers because they know people are stuck. Like I have read word for word contracts and seen things that I do not like about it, and I have to sign it anyway because I need the thing. Like, I need it now. I don't have time to like go bicker with 30 fucking companies, all of which I know are going to do the same thing.
Well, and maybe that's like a product of Western ignorance.
We're not going to change that. There's no way to change that.
Yeah, there is. We should go ahead. Okay, yes, I know it's difficult, but it's worth the fight to try to change that back to the way it was 200 years ago. Like, I don't like going backwards, but this is one place where going backwards makes sense.
I mean, like, you always have companies that are like, we're contract free, or companies that have contracts, but there's nobody in between that's like advertising like, hey, we have actual contracts that you can negotiate with us. Like,
they might say contract free, but unfortunately, if you read the EULA, it's a contract. There's contracts no matter what, and it is ultimately a product of ignorance. Like, and I'm not saying anything bad. Like, that's just like not knowing stuff. That's okay. But we should know things, and we should share information, and we should better the world and improve things. Maybe it won't be better now, but it's going to be better in the future if we try to make it better. I
tell you one thing: I've made good decisions in the past. I've made good decisions in the future.
Oh, that was so perfect. Oh my god. Oh,
good old Dan Quayle.
Yeah. Oh man, the Quailisms. They were so good. Like, oh my god. That was oh my god. Oh, and the Bushisms too. Like, I believe that like humans and fish can live together. Like, oh man, why do we have such a boring system now? Like, oh, it doesn't have all the panache that the past had. Good
time.
Yeah. I just I feel like we should probably end this soon. Although, I mean, there's so many good points.
Yeah, I mean, the contracts one would be a good episode to do. Although we already did a pretty good little diatribe there.
We did, yes.
But okay, so we talked a lot about identification as just being kind of a ridiculous the way it is and stuff, but like, what does make one better than the other? Like, I mean, like the criteria that they have for it is kind of silly when you look at it. Like,
yeah,
like a passport versus a driver's license. I mean, like, disregarding the driving test portion of it as just like a piece of identification, is really just like you show your birth certificate or something. And a passport, you show your birth certificate and take a really good photo, like,
yeah,
and like another piece of forgeable identification, like it's all like kind of flimsy.
Well, sure. And isn't a driver's license good enough to be a passport?
They're making it that way now because they're like, it's forge proof or whatever. It's like,
There's
no.
nothing as that's like, dude, that have you ever watched the lock picking lawyer? Like, it's that'd be like saying this is a pick proof lock. There is no lock on the face of the planet that is pick proof. And as soon as a crack is seen in the wall, well, the the people that want to get through that barrier are gonna just open that up. Um,
I don't
yeah,
know. Like, there's so much, there's so much put on security, and it's just a constant battle. Like, one side makes it harder to crack, the other side gets better at cracking it, and it goes on and on and on like that. Why not just not give a fuck? Like,
well, you okay? That's a good option. Although I would say that that conflict yields better security. Like we would, if it weren't for the hackers and freakers from the 90s and the 80s and stuff like that, our security would not be that good now.
right, but
We'd
that's
be
my point is like on the flip side, the crime is getting crimier.
yeah. Well, that's true. And you know, maybe this is the point where we want to go to a higher algorithmic level at that point. Like you asked, like, what is a better form of identification? Well, I guess I would ask in response, like, who's asking that question? Who better for who? Is
Yeah.
it better for us as just average everyday Joes, or better for authoritarian regimes or governments that would like to control people? Because the criteria that make up those factors varies wildly depending
Yeah.
on which faction that you're amongst.
And it
Um,
locks your identity in. Like,
yeah,
if you want to change your name when you get married or something, there's a bunch of fucking paperwork. You know, oh, your social security has to change, your driver's license has to change, name on all your accounts has to change, you know.
oh, and not just no,
Even a phone number is like
look,
that. I mean,
it is not just like you sign a few papers and you write some things on pieces of papers. No, you have to pony up. It costs you money. Like
mhm.
they charge you. They're charging us to just simply be. Uh, and then they're charging us if we want to change something.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you get charged if they fuck up. Oh, yeah, you got to pay for that. There's a charge for that. There's a fee for that. Like,
One of
yeah,
these days, we got to talk about ways that we can start charging the government for fucking up.
hell yeah.
There are so many times I want to do that.
Mhm.
Like, oh, you guys fucked up royal. My time is valuable, and
Mhm.
you wasted like 3 days of my life,
Yeah.
like consecutive hours put together. Like 3 days of my life are gone
Yeah.
fixing your fuck up, which I'm paying for, by
Which,
the way.
which they probably, I would venture to guess, they never even apologize for. Like, okay, sure, it'd be nice to compensate you monetarily, but hey, an apology would be nice. Like, hey, we fucked up. Wouldn't it be nice to
It
hear
would
that
just be
once in a
copy pasted anyway. Like,
while? Well, yeah, it's a form letter. You're gonna get that. Well, if you even get that. Um, mm, oh my god. But all this can be avoided by using the technology that we have today. Like we could fix this. The thing is, the powers that be don't want to fix it because they profit off of their own mistakes and being able to access all information all the time about you. They want to know everything. They want to be basically the eye in the sky in your bedroom as you're having sex with your girlfriend. They would love nothing more than for that to be the case, and to document it and store it in some database somewhere so they can review it at a later time. Your privacy doesn't matter to those systems.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many stories like that in our history. And I kind of wonder if that's not just a better way to just have like, some benign entity that masks themselves as some kind of like all-knowing oracle, and people just like go to the oracle, and life is simple. There's not all this complication and tax and blah blah blah. It's just a simple fucking system with the fewest moving parts possible.
I agree. Like the idea of simplicity, like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Um,
like you say, with technology, we can do stuff like that now. Like we can make like I fully believe like a, a country of pretty much any size needs a government, but like it should be the most efficient government possible, and economical too. Like it
well,
should not
sure.
cost a bunch of money to operate. you know
Well, and certainly if you look at like Western governments, they're very non-efficient and non-economical. Um, and the question should be asked, like if we should have a government, what is its function? Should it have the kind of control and omniscience and omnipotence
well,
that it has? Like,
the,
and
the
what are the risks? Like, what are the pitfalls if we give up that? Because the thing is, like, they don't have that omniscience and omnipotence by default. We had to forfeit that to them. Like, and we continue to do that
I
all
mean,
the time.
functions should correlate to need,
Yeah.
and needs vary. So I mean, like the
True.
functions will be pretty broad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a doctor doesn't necessarily need like healthcare. They know how to like take care of themselves, but they have no idea how to fix a pothole. Like there's nobody's an island, and we all need help in some avenue somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So like these are all things that should exist, but there should be some level of like instead of just like a blanket tax that covers everything, and then budgets fuck things up, and like what about like, I don't know, more of a barter system with the government?
Ooh, that's that's a
like
good
like
point.
like it there's a conflict of interest in the government collecting tax, and you know being the overlord of the currency in which they're collecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes,
recognize I
you don't
recognize that.
say.
I recognize that, but I also see like benefit in having like a standardized currency that's trackable. Like there are good reasons to track stuff, right? Like actual budgets that make sense for one thing, not budgets like, oh, we better spend this or we won't get it next year.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a
But
minute microscopy about that over there, probably,
yeah.
if you remember.
but
Mm.
like, why not just have it be a barter system where like, oh, the government needs some kind of service from the private sector. Well, the private sector can get some kind of benefit from the government, maybe, like work things out.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, but it's a team effort. Like we're all citizens of Earth. Like
Yeah.
we're
And
all
have the government
dealing.
be non-profit, like
Mm-hmm.
volunteer work and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't that how it kind of started?
Yeah, pretty much. Although, you want to talk about a nonprofit, the most profitable organization on the planet are governments. Like they make so much profit. And Not only that,
How
like,
can
okay,
that be when there's a national deficit? That's hard to
well,
reconcile.
that's a whole that okay, don't ask those questions. We don't ask those questions. Uh, but yeah, like McDonald's or Walmart or something, like they make profit, but they're a private organization. There's just private people doing their own things. Um, and people have a problem with that, but apparently it's a problem, or it's not a problem, if governments do the same thing through
Oh no.
extortion. Like the thing
I,
is,
I have a problem with
Walmart,
both.
Walmart and McDonald's don't have armed goons that will like rough you up if you don't pay. Like
Well,
honestly, things haven't changed since the early days. It,
I think we're ready to evolve beyond profit, honestly.
well,
It's not natural.
okay,
It's
no, there's
agreed.
okay.
There's no need for it.
Okay, I'm going to make an argument in favor of profit, and that is grain silos. So you store excesses for the future. Like you can't build something new if you haven't acquired and stored a bit of excess from the past, from past successful ventures or something like that.
A
You're not
bit,
going to build a
yes.
new factory if you don't have profit. Where's the money going to come from? Like you do have to have a little bit of that.
Yes. Well,
With the driving
that's where
force,
personal budgeting comes in. And I mean
yeah.
personal even for a company, right? Like you have an emergency fund. It's like, oh, here's X amount that
I
we
don't.
need.
Well, no, you're right. An emergency fund is good,
Yeah.
but you should also have a constructive fund. And I get where you're going with. Like, there are wasteful profits and there are constructive profits.
Yes.
Wasteful would be like, oh, the CEO makes, you know, $10 billion a year. Okay, that is bullshit.
Right.
That is way too over the top. Now, if a company puts away $10 billion a year, say like SpaceX or something, right? They've done a bunch of successful space launches and they're putting away money, and then they build this amazing rocket system that they've taken from their stores of resources. Well, I don't see a problem with that. Like,
No.
because that's constructive. Like, okay,
Right.
sure.
I'm not saying everybody has to break even, but it's like hoarding profit is ridiculous. Like if you amass some wealth, yeah, like invest it,
Mm-hmm.
spend it, inject it into the economy, contribute, like
Well,
however you
okay,
contribute.
I agree. And to an extent, a lot of people who acquire vast sums of wealth do that very thing because, well, your wealth vanishes if you don't do that thing. That's just a fact of life. But yeah, we should be doing that, and perspective too. Tomorrow, a giant flaming meteorite could extinguish all life on planet Earth, or well, the Russo-Ukrainian war could do the same, and it probably might. Um, that like so, it's important to keep things in perspective and be constructive. We should always be constructive, not destructive or wasteful. Like, oh, oh man, I'm getting all amped up now.
It's interesting how identity got here. Well, identification specifically.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so much of our identities revolve around accumulation of wealth or
Stuff.
popularity or like merits to tie to our name, like
Yeah.
I mean I get it, but I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some feeding of the ego there, but like as with anything, uh moderation, like
Well, exactly. And I don't understand how intangible stuff like currencies
mhm.
and money become the standard by which people weigh themselves against another person, which of course comparison is the thief of joy. So why would you weigh yourself against another person? Seems like bullshit to me.
Yeah.
Like,
and,
weigh
and I,
yourself against yourself. Like,
and I think that's the point I was trying to drive at, is like, I, when I say profit, I'm kind of also speaking about like money, currency, like Benjamins, like
yeah, well,
I feel like we're evolving beyond that. Like that's the most compelling argument I see for something like NFTs and crypto, is like it makes it more intangible, and
mhm.
it makes it more like, I don't know, closer to Star Trek, I guess. Like,
Which is honestly, as ridiculous of a vision that is, like, it is a worthy vision to strive for. We
yeah,
should be striving for a world like that where nobody wants for anything.
if you shoot for
Everybody
the moon
has,
and you miss, you're still among the stars.
yeah. Oh, damn, that would be an outro clip. That was awesome. But yeah, comparing ourselves to each other, like, yeah, okay, we're unequal on this planet. Like, not everybody has the same. I mean, we don't live under the same gravity on planet Earth, let alone the same financial, socioeconomic status, like starting points and things like that. And we shouldn't judge people in that way, other people, because the thing is, like, people judge themselves based on that. People look at themselves and are like, oh, I'm not worthy. It's like, no, you're worthy. We're all worthy. And money isn't shit. It's a number. It's a made up fabrication that some people made up a long time ago. Well, I mean, does it have value? Sure. But really, what's the value compared to your own life?
Yeah. I mean, like, personally, in my youth, I used to aspire to have a lot of nice things and a nice big house and stuff. And, I don't know if there was like a feeling of comfort that came from that somehow, but now I just like, I don't know if it's just my life experiences or what, but all I really want is to just be comfortable and to not have to worry about shit. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to have like free time to
Mm-hmm.
do things that I want to do and put in a little effort to get the things I need.
I don't think that's a very tall order,
And I
honestly.
don't even see where money has to come into that. Like, if everybody just kind of agreed that that's really all that's necessary to like live a happy life,
Mm-hmm.
like, you can get what you need and you can barter for what you want.
Yeah, as long as you don't have any impediments to your goals, that can be achieved. There is, unfortunately, kind of a hyper focus on money
Yeah.
in most Western nations. And I get it. I understand where that comes from. But on the day to
I think
day, it's kind of unnecessary.
I honestly
And
think that's what the initial goal of Christianity was, because there was
mhm,
a lot of that talk coming from Jesus and
yeah.
Buddha. I do see the
Yes.
correlations there. Um, it's very Buddhist to to think that way,
Hmm.
and it makes a lot of sense. It's like, don't be a dick and help each other out, and just try to like live a happy life and not intrude upon others as much as possible.
And whether it be money or grain or space to live, like
Teaching men
share,
to fish, whatever, you
yeah,
know.
share what you have. Like if you have a little bit more, share it with somebody who has a little bit less. That you're right. Like that is kind of a Jesus thing, which
Yeah. Whether he was real or not, whether he was God's son or not, the stories, the
it's
morals were pretty sound.
it's a yeah, that's a great way to live.
Yeah.
And not
It's
only
kind of
that,
immaterial about the whole God thing if you really think about it. It's
well, it
like
is.
just be a good person.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
We know we're existing right now, and that's what really matters right now. So
yeah,
just be good, and you'll
and
be rewarded if that's all real, you know.
and the rewards, honestly, are not uh ethereal. The rewards are grounded and material. They're like helping people go through things,
Yeah.
helping people solve their problems, sharing a little bit. Like it brings so much reward. It's almost religious.
It's like being
It's a
in love,
spiritual thing.
you know?
Yeah.
Like it's that feeling. I mean, love is a lot of altruism and stuff, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like being there for somebody, feeling that you can count on them to be there for you, stuff like that. Being nice to other people is just like being in love in little microcosms, you know.
Yeah. Oh, well, and then
I've become such a hippie in my old age.
so have I. I like, no, you're right about the love aspect. And you know, people are going to be like, oh, well, love. It's like, well, some sexual something or other.
It was
No.
invented by Hallmark.
Hallmark. Well, there is a conspiracy theory there. Um, but yeah, like
Love was invented by bank managers to make people overdrawn.
I knew there was going to be a Red Dwarf reference here. Hmm. Oh, this, holy shit! What? There's so much
Such a
to
good
talk about
episode.
here. Man, it's like everything gets better and better. How do we do this?
Yeah, after 200 episodes, like in our fourth year, we've pretty much mastered the art of whatever it is we do.
Yeah, whatever it is we do is awesome. Oh man.
Your source for all things kitchen sinks, microscopes, and philosophy.
Oh man.
And
Wow.
we have yet to do an episode about a kitchen sink. Or a
I
microscope,
still
really.
have that on my minute microscopy radar about how to change a kitchen sink.
In a minute.
I could do it, but not in the video.
That would be pretty entertaining.
I expected a lot of like overflow of water and spraying everywhere, everything getting wet. Oh, wait a minute. Huh.
That should be it. You're like, I'm going to challenge myself to change this kitchen sink in 1 minute. And then it's just like 1 minute later.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, so good. Well, and we said, hey, why don't we stick to like half an hour for an episode? Now we're like over an hour now.
Yeah.
But this was good. Like, there is so much to consider here. And this is what I love about what we do.
Yeah.
There's
no reining it in. It just,
no.
it becomes what it becomes.
Yeah, it does. Although maybe,
I mean, we talked about like splitting it into like 2 or 3 parters, but like, there's not even a way to like cut a fine line
No.
anywhere. It just blends.
And this is a good topic, actually. Um, Crazy how it began, but it's a really important topic for like understanding your place as a human on planet Earth. Like, ooh, yeah. It does bug me when governments and officials like start talking about the others, in dehumanizing ways. It's like, no, you know what?
Mhm.
When the zombie apocalypse happens, when the giant flaming meteorite comes down, you're all going to be screaming equally. Like, there are not going to be any leaders or bosses or
Order.
better people, like, or
Ashcroft.
borders. Ashcroft, yeah. There's not going to be any borders. Like, does an asteroid recognize a border? Like, oh, well, ooh, I better divert myself and like go to
Borders are
Mexico instead of Canada. Eh?
borders are nothing more than another form of identification,
Mm-hmm.
which is also just made up bullshit.
Well, you're right. They are. That's a good
Well,
point.
and another little offshoot diatribe about borders and naming, like identifying countries and stuff. There's uh here in America, the Native Americans and stuff, however native you want to, however far back you go where you decide somebody was native, even though they all fucking migrated here. Um, they named stuff, and then colonization happened and they renamed stuff, and now there's a movement to like rename them back to the original names and stuff, and people are all divisive and polarized about that, and it's like they're just fucking names.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's just
nobody.
it's just a chosen identity. Like,
Yeah, which is ridiculous because nobody seems to bat an eye here in Washington State about the fact that like most of the street names, county names, cities, towns are named after Native American names.
yeah,
Nobody cares about that. They're like, oh yeah, well, I'm Sammamish. Like,
right.
you do realize that. Uh,
Don't
oh.
tell me you're pissed that we call it Mount Rainier instead of Mount Tahoma if you
Mm-hmm.
call Istanbul Istanbul and not Constantinople.
I wish we could throw in that song by They Might Be Giants. Oh my
I
god.
mean, that's a good point, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, if you're gonna be like, oh, we better name it what it used to be named, and you're gonna be all this like ancestral, traditional bullshitist, you
Mhm.
better be fucking consistent.
Yeah. Well, you know how much I hate a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Like,
yeah.
I will happily call it Mount Tahoma and Mount Rainier,
Hmm.
given how I feel in the moment, because I'm the kind of guy that says neither and neither. It just really depends on where I put it in the sentence.
But yeah, exactly. It's kind of like whoever you're talking to.
Yeah,
Um,
whatever rolls off the tongue, like just roll with the punches, people.
and it doesn't matter.
Same thing with gender. Like, why do people give a shit what another person decides to identify as in
Yeah.
any aspect? Name, gender, fucking even skin color. Like if if you're pale like me and you think you're black, fine.
Well, and maybe you could be.
Yeah.
Like, it's possible. Yeah, you're right. Like it
Like, what
doesn't.
is black anyway?
It's melanin, I guess. Uh,
Right?
I mean, I
Like, which Pantone becomes black? Like,
yeah. I mean, oh,
And it's all a bunch of uh,
and,
humans.
and and honestly, like ignoring all that noise goes a long way to
Brings
bringing,
harmony.
yeah, bringing everybody together. Like, you
Even just
know,
personal harmony. Like the less you give a fuck, the happier you'll be.
exactly. Well, and when the giant flaming meteorite comes down, it is indiscriminate. It's not going to care what you look like, who you identify as, or what your name is. You will be extinguished the same as everybody else, be you rich or poor, royalty, or some subjugated group of people or something. We're all fucking dead.
Yeah.
We're all dead. Like when a supernova happens, it isn't like pointing its energy at one particular group of people in a particular portion of the planet. No, it is indiscriminate, like nuclear war. Like we're all fucking dead.
Yeah.
So we should work together. We should figure out a way to overcome our differences and work together. Because when it happens, well, I would hope that we've overcome those differences.
Yeah. When the chips are down, the men's rights people, the women's rights people, the white power people, the Ungawa black power, your mama don't take a shower people, you're all assholes at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like all of you, because we're all just fucking humans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're
And
all equal. It should be about equality, not smashing the other side and taking over.
yeah, because that's exactly how wars happen. Um,
That's exactly how you got put in the shitty position you were in
well,
from your perspective.
honestly,
You know,
if you want to be subjugated, then definitely perpetuate the differences between people and make that a thing, because that is the very first step in becoming a slave. If you want to free your people or yourselves, well, look past that and look at every human as a human being,
mm-hmm.
because we are. Um, we all bleed red, right?
Except
Oh,
the dirty Vulcans.
the Vulcans.
Yeah,
Oh man, if Paramount wouldn't give us a strike, I would put in, um,
McCoy.
yeah, a clip from McCoy. Yeah.
Even
Mm.
in the 23rd century, there was racism.
Yeah.
You know, like it just goes to show you we'll never be perfect, but it doesn't hurt to try.
Well, we should try. Like, and the idea that we're ever gonna be perfect, I think, is a pipe dream. Fuck it. Like
It's a
it's never
goal you
gonna
can
be a thing.
have, but as long as you know you'll never get there and don't let that discourage you.
Yeah.
You know, like that's kind of the point. Like it's just one of those goals you know you'll never really be finished with.
Yeah.
Like I've always tried to remind myself that I'm always a work in progress. And you know, sometimes people will be like, you know, even in the 4 years we've done this show, there's points where people can be like, well, in this video you said this, and it's like, yeah, well, I changed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've grown.
Which that's it's important to accept that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and things are evolutionary. Like okay, sure, things are not perfect, and like you said, I don't think they ever will be. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try for perfection. We should not stop trying to evolve. Um, we may never get where we think. And honestly, if we today think we know what is perfect, well, we're fucking idiots. That is not like we will find out when we get there. That's how we're going to find out the evolutionary perfection. But the only way is through evolution and through change and constant reevaluation and adjustment and things like that. And
Yeah.
and it's okay if we make mistakes along the way. That's normal. That is science.
I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Having this show as a record is actually pretty cool because, we can look back and examine
mm-hmm.
how we were and compare it to how we are now.
Yeah.
And even Facebook Memories does this to an extent. Like I'll see posts from 2009 and be like, God damn, I was a dick. Like,
Yeah.
like that's who I was, but it's not who I am now. It's like,
And this is the important thing to note is like who you were then is not who you are now. And society or even your own self should not judge yourself based on that.
yeah.
That one singular time.
And that helps me not to judge others too.
Yeah.
Like because I used to be that guy too, where somebody's past would bother me. And now somebody will tell me about their past with a little bit of shame, and I'll just be like, it's okay. You're who you are now.
Yeah.
I got shit I'm not proud of too. Like we all do.
Yes. Very
So
true.
like don't sweat it. Like I'm not judging you.
Which I think is a very important message. Although,
and I still have to fight it. Like there's still parts of me that are like, ooh. And then I have to like check myself and be like, is it really a big deal? Nah.
mm-hmm.
You got to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
Because that's how you grow.
And growth is the most important thing. Like, we should be working towards a brighter future. Isn't that what we all want? Do we want warfare amongst ourselves, or do we want things to be awesome? Like, put it on a scale. I would rather have things be flawed but ultimately awesome than deceptively perfect and ultimately not perfect.
I just got the urge to write music.
Good.
Maybe that's a good point to wrap up on.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in now, so I think we've gone rambled on long enough. But hey, if you have thoughts, share them in the comment section. We're gonna start doing a wholly live episode, so you can interact real time, and we'll respond. We're actually very good at responding to comments. That is what we do best.
And please, if you want to put your face up here with us and actually interact in real time and not with the lag and us having to read your words and all that stuff that kind of like slows the roll, please come on the show.
Yeah. Well, and if you're
join the conversation real time.
Yeah. And if you're in the Pierce County area, you might be able to just hang out live with us live here or something.
Yeah.
And record a live episode. You never know.
And if you have video editing skills and you want to contribute a little help, that would be awesome because we're super busy.
Yeah. Oh, we're so behind.
I've got a dying dad and Eric has 7 girlfriends. It's pretty hard to get things done.
Well, like I said, this is a labor of love. This is not our main source of income. This is not our day job. Oh, if you haven't seen it yet, Day Job Orchestra, though.
Speaking of channels that kind of fell off the radar a little bit, yeah,
and then came back again,
but nowhere near like they were.
Yeah,
I remember they churned out stuff so often that we were like, how do they do that? Like all that dubbing, and
yeah,
that's a lot of work.
Oh man.
Anyway,
Yeah. Anywho,
you heard us talking about writing music. You probably hear it floating on the breeze.
Yeah. The winds of change. Oh shit! That's not our song.
Someday when we're super rich, we can use other people's music.
Oh,
we probably won't though, because we'll have plenty of our own.
And it might be like a mashup of like Altair and Scorpions. That would be awesome.
We should just start like doing covers, because who's going to stop us?
That's a good point. Huh.
Like I did release Enjoy the Silence as a cover, and it never got any kind of hint of copyright anything. So
well,
it was pretty different, but you know, like,
can we do Scorpions Wind of Change?
I'll get so much shit from my girlfriend.
Such a good song though. Oh man. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we've rambled on long enough. Like we're coming up on like an hour and a half now. So I was thinking this is going to be, hey, let's do a short episode. This is anything but. But it was good. Right. Like, this is a good episode.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, if you're still with us, thank you. And if you're not still with us, or you're watching us sometime in the future, throw your comments down there. Give some ideas. Give us your contact information. We might bring you on the show to talk about things. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
And as always, listen to the wind of change.
Cines Camara.